First of all, we're really excited to have you all here. This is all the Parent Educator Conference is always one of our favorite things to do. Because we just love interacting with you guys and just getting to hear things from your guys' point of view and to celebrate you. And like I said, my name is Chasity Craft. I'm a literacy consultant here, and Stephanie is the math. And what this session is we realize that a lot of teaching strategies can be used in reading or math or, mainly reading or math. They can be interchangeable, especially the multisensory that we're going to be talking about today. So the materials that you guys have in these bags, we're going to be playing with them and using them, and then you guys can take those back, and then when you guys work with your little fellas and gals, then you can use those as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce what multisensory is, and then we're going to use some hands-on activities to learn some reading and some math concepts. And then we're going to also talk about different learning styles, and that's always cool. I think that's really neat. So what do we mean by multisensory? Have any of you guys heard that term before, multisensory? Okay, what does that mean to you?
Different ways of learning.
Yeah.
Different ways of picking stuff up.
Absolutely. Yes, you have different ways of learning, and that's what it leads into those learning styles. So there's typically 3 different ones. You have the auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. So a lot of times, which is how we were always taught in school, you had the stand up, the lecture. Okay, that's auditory. When you do that you're only reaching 20 to 30% of your class. If you do visual, it's 40%, and then the kinesthetic, which is movement, is 30 to 40%. So really, if you just teach any of the one learning styles, you're hitting less than half your kids. So what we want to do is, because when we talk about, oh my gosh, I got to present something 3 different ways, that sounds a little bit overwhelming. So the activities that we're going to be doing is really, you're doing all 3. You're hitting all 3 learning styles in one activity. So that way you're going to hit all of your learning styles and hit most of your all of your kids that way.
Think of multisensory also as I'm using as many senses as I can. So I'm seeing it, I'm hearing it, I'm talking about it, I'm also feeling something, or I'm moving with something. You're hitting all of those senses. Even sometimes they'll have, like for C will be a cookie, and the kids will take a bite out of a cookie, right? And so you have that. Or good example is you have little starbursts, and the kids eat 2 starbursts, and they, it's the little bitty tiny ones. So they have that. So trying to get all your senses that you possibly can into multisensory, that's what we're talking about.
Okay, just really quickly, the reason why that we do, we want to use manipulatives and things too, is phonological awareness. And what phonological awareness is the awareness of sounds before you get to, like C says k. We know that what the letter C says, or what the letter C looks like. They have to be able to hear those sounds. So what we're going to be talking about today are kids having to go k, at, cat, and hearing the sound, not necessarily knowing that is C-A-T, but they can actually hear it. It's really surprising if you're sounding out words, they can't distinguish between those 3 sounds. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. So, and it's really difficult, and I threw this in here because it's, I taught reading, special ed reading for 20 years. And it's so, because you teach them these rules and you teach them these things, and then they apply that rule, and that's not how you say that word. And it's so frustrating. And it's because we have 26 letters in our English language. With those 26 letters, we have 44 sounds, and with those 44 sounds, they're spelled 250 different ways. Now that's why, kids, bless their hearts. So for example, the f sound can be spelled P-H, F, G-H, or F-F. And if if they're strong in phonics and they see the G-H, they're going to try to say G. But, it's just so difficult.
Okay, so in math, math is difficult because, 1, numbers are abstract. That's just a symbol. And we kind of forget that that's just a symbol. It has to have a quantity put with it. And so one of the things is if a student doesn't understand quantity, we have to kind of back up and make sure that they understand quantity. I love it when we have little kids and they'll come to you and they'll say, I got 3. And then you'll ask them to put them in your hand and they'll do this. They'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, we know they do that, right? So they keep on, or they'll just keep on. So numbers are very abstract to them. They don't understand that, so we have to go back and make sure they understand quantity that goes with that symbol, and we have to show it together. It has to be put with what they're doing, 1, 2, 3, understanding the symbol for 3. And then on top of that, new concepts are always built on the previous one. That's why if a student doesn't understand one concept and we go ahead and move on, we're behind at this point, because now I'm having to build on that last concept. Well, what happens if I don't understand that concept in 2nd grade and now I'm in 5th grade and now I've been trying to build all this time, I've lost that student back all the way to 2nd grade where they need to build that concept, right? And so it's very hard for our students, and concepts must be understood, not learned. They have to be able to explain it. That's where we lose them in math. We think that we can show them an algorithm, which an algorithm is, and I love this, and I get all over parents all the time, and I get all over teachers too. When we show them an algorithm before 4th grade, it's an issue. And when I talk about an algorithm, what I'm talking about is we cannot let them just regroup. Bring that 1 up, and we're going to carry that 1, right?
Now, Stephanie, is an algorithm is 4 plus 4 equals 8? Is that algorithm? Is that the definition?
That can be an algorithm too, but do
Okay.
they understand why 4 plus 4 is 8?
Right, and that's why I want to jump in on this and piggyback on what Stephanie's saying, because this right here for me is really, like, actually when I started working with Stephanie, I was like, thank you for going this route, because I was always a straight A student in school, but the math procedures that we're taught, you know, you put your 1, or you put your 10s, you carry your, or 1, or
Put
whatever.
your 1, carry your 10. Yep,
Yeah, that's why she's math. But, you know, I always did that because I was taught that procedure. Okay, it's the same way with algebra, you know, and I was like, okay, this is how you solve this problem. I did it
because these are the steps
because
I do,
I
right?
learned the procedure. And then, yeah, the steps
then
on
we
how to do
change
it.
it.
And that's it. And then when I got, I remember, I'll never forget when I was in college, I got to take an elementary math class. And then it was this is like the first time I'd seen manipulatives and stuff. And then it was like, and when we went through it, I went, oh, I was in college. And I had done those procedures my whole life. And so if you go and if the kid understands the concept right off, then the procedures will come, or they will figure out a way on their own to do it. Like some kids, when they're like, well, I did it in my head. Well, they can do that eventually if they understand that concept.
And if they say, I can do it in my head, the first thing I'm going to do is tell me exactly your steps. Can you go back for just a second?
Oh, sorry.
Tell me exactly why. How did you do that? What do you know about that? And that gets them started. If you've got a student who's really stumped and says, I don't know, okay, you've talked through it, right? And they say, I don't know. The best thing you can do to that student is ask them, what do you see? Don't ask them what they know. I can't be wrong with what I see. Let's start at the problem and let's start breaking it down. And so if I ask them, what do they see? And they say, well, I see 21. Okay, bring something out for them to work with. Bead strings are great. They are my favorite. Unifix cubes are wonderful. One, they're better than base 10 blocks because I can pop them together and take them apart, right? And I always have my kids put them back in 10s. That's one of the things that I do for my kids. I taught algebra using a bead string and Unifix cubes because my kids could do it when they could see it and break it down. So I'm going to say this. Being a person who taught kindergarten through 3rd, I got to skip 4th, thankfully. And then 5 through 8, mathematics only. I'm not good at the other stuff, and I'll tell you that now. These were my friends because my kids could do it. And I tried to make everything that I possibly could into an activity that they could use some of this, whether it was cards that they were doing or whatever. And the last one is it requires practice and patience. And I'm going to say that because practice, they have to do it multiple times, but Denny Paul talked about over there, we got to give them practice. We got to give them time to talk to you, right? That's true, but we got to give them feedback in the process because it takes longer to undo them doing it wrong than it takes for us to do it right the first time. If our little brains, Chastity and I set up a habit, it takes us 21 days to set that habit up. 21 times of doing something to set up that habit. Now, we set up that habit and we set it up wrong. How long does it take us to undo that? It takes us 28 more days to undo the habit before we can reset up the habit. So we got to think of it that way. Do you have that much time in school to mess them up? We don't have it. So we got to make sure that we're doing it right the first time. All right.
And this is a little video. It's really, it's short. It's talking about the importance of sounds. And when we go through and talk to our kids and try to teach them our letter sounds, we have to be careful on how we tell them that sound is made. A lot of it with our dialect in this region, you know, we kind of draw our words and our letters out.
Our V's.
Yeah, and
Put an H on it.
you know, all of them. And it's okay if we're talking, because I'm proud of our accent and things like that, but when we're trying to teach kids how to read, we have to be extremely careful on how we do those sounds, because I'm just about every one of them, you know, you say buh, duh, you know, all of them. And so we all do it. And even sometimes when I'm doing like other trainings and I'm telling you to not do it, you will catch me doing it because it's such a habit. So just real quick, I wanted to share this video. This is just how letters are pronounced, really. I'm not sure. So I'm not going to enlarge that because it always messes everything up. Hold on, can y'all hear it?
C, cat, D, dog, E, egg, F, fan, G, goat, H, hat, I, inchworm, J, jet, K, key, L, light bulb, M, mask, N, nose, O, octopus, P, pan, Q, queen, R, rabbit, S, sun, T, toe, U, umbrella, V, vase, W, walrus, X, X-ray, Y, yo-yo, Z, zebra.
Okay, so I'm sure when you're listening, there's some of those that's like, oh yeah, because like what, wah, you know, and so there's just so many of those. So that's just an example, just to kind of bring it to just make you aware of it when you're teaching those kids, because if they're really copying the sounds that you're making to blend sounds together, when they start putting those uhs at the end, it's going to be difficult when they try to spell it or even sound out words. And one thing I wanted to share that I forgot about until when we get to when they got to the E. And you know, if E is at the beginning, like egg, we say eh for the most part. But when you have P-E-N, what do we say? Pen. Okay, if we say pen, that's I, which is I. And so it's really pen instead of a pen. And a perfect example of this, and I share this about every time, Stephanie's going to get tired of hearing me say it, but I think it's just so cute. So my daughter's 21 now, but when she was little, she was into Dora. Okay, so she was watching Dora, and I don't know if you all are familiar with Dora, but there's a bull on there. And she was like, yeah, Bunny. Well, it was like, Bunny? Who's Bunny? You know, and come to find out, it was Benny the bull, but she was saying it correctly. She was saying Benny, but she was like 2. So I thought I didn't know what she was saying. But I was like, and then I said, oh, were you talking about Benny? She went, no, Benny. And I was like, oh, wow. And so that really hit home to me that I was like, wow, that's, we just got to, how we say our sounds. So, but I'll just never forget that. And I just think that's such a good example for that. But, okay. Now we get into the fun stuff. So we're gonna use the stuff that's in your all's bags. The first thing that we're gonna work with is the bead and pipe cleaner. Right here.
Get those out.
And we're gonna let y'all make yours. And you will probably have more than 10 beads just because I always worry that I don't count correctly. So what you do is just use 10. So on one end of the pipe cleaner, just turn it, make a little knot on one end. And then just slide 10 beads on it. And it does not matter what order, what color, it don't matter.
I'm going to say this for mathematics, since you guys are putting those together and she's talking about that. It doesn't matter what color. We try to keep our colors together. That's the reason why I gave you the bigger bead string. And if I was working with those in math, yeah, I know, we're picky. Math people are picky. We're just going to be that way.
There's a reason behind your madness, though.
There is a reason behind my madness. I typically, if I'm working with kindergartners in first grade, I want 5-ness going on. We call it 5 Ys, right? And the 5-ness that I want going on, I want to have 5 white and 5 red so that the kids can see the difference. So 5 plus 1 is 6 and 5 plus 2 is 7. I want that going on. If you notice on the bead string that I gave you, it's in 10s. These are wonderful. And if you don't work with kids who are in 2nd grade or above, or even in first grade, if you've got kindergartners, take some of these off because they don't need all of these, and put them up in another baggie and just pull them out when they do need them. But for my kids, I want them to see 10 plus 1 is 11. I want them to be able to understand what 10s are. I want them to be able to count by 10s. I had a huge one of these made out of perforated golf balls that went across my room that matched for my kids. So when I was showing something, they were able to do the same thing on their desk.
Pool noodles is a good example too. You could get a jump rope and cut those pool noodles and chop them up.
And that's great for fractions. That's wonderful for fractions. And you can actually put that on. I'm going to tell you my favorite thing to buy was catfish line, and it's the catfish line that's waxed from Walmart or Hobby Lobby. You can get it from either place. Walmart's cheaper. I'm going to say that right now. And I would use that to slide them on, and I would use at the ends. These are just tied, but I went and bought the key rings like these right here, and then I put those on the ends so that I could put on the edges of my desk. I had those command hooks, and they would pull them over the edges of the desk and just hook them. And so then they weren't moving everywhere. The kids weren't, how kids are. We have to teach them these are tools, of course, because then they're wanting to do this and they're wanting to do other things. So to keep them from doing that, they knew just to go ahead and clip them real quick, and we were ready to work. You do have to give them time to play with manipulatives. They need that time just to move them around. And sometimes because they're making their own, that makes it better for them too.
And that it would be up to you if you guys want them to make them or if you want to make them for them either. It probably depend on the kid and the age and all that stuff. Okay, so after you get your beads on, then tie just a knot in the other end just to keep it on. And then what's really cool is you have this simple manipulative, and it's extremely cheap, and we're going to cover 8 concepts for reading or ELA, English language, and math. So you can do so many things with just this one manipulative. So the first thing that I didn't tie my knot very good because I just lost the bead. I pulled it too tight and made the knot too small. But,
If you want to use my bead string, I don't have to worry about that.
Yours is not as fun. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the spoken word. Now that one, the concept of spoken word, and that was what I was talking about earlier when I talked about being able to hear sounds and hear words separately. So you can look at when you're talking to kids, and I know this sounds kind of basic, but it's kind of where we're at with some of our kids. If I say a sentence, Stephanie went to the store, they need to be able to distinguish how many words make up that sentence. And so you have to, I mean, some of those kids can't distinguish between when Stephanie went is two different words. So when we do that, so that's what that's called, concept of spoken word, is to be able to separate words into a sentence. And so what we do, and we always want to reinforce directionality because we read left to right. So everything that we do, we're going to start on the left, push your beads to the left, and push it over, going to right. And that's just, like I said, just to reinforce that. And so if you're sitting at a group, you know, at a table, and the kids are facing you, then you're going to be doing it backwards to them. But just when you know, just think about when you're doing that, you want the kids to see it left to right, and that's why we do that. So since you are backwards to me, I will put mine over so it will be on your left. So what you do with this, and this talks about going back to the multisensory. So when we talk about movement, it doesn't necessarily mean that because when I first started hearing about kinesthetic, I think about, you know, running and jumping and playground and things like that. And that is kinesthetic, but it's also when we move these beads, we are moving. So that is that kinesthetic piece. It can be small movements. And then we are hearing, because as we say the sentence out loud, you're hearing it. And then the visual right now is this bead is a visual representation of each word. It's not necessarily the written word, it's just some kind of hard, concrete object that's going to represent something. Okay, so what you do is like, okay, I'm going to say a sentence, and I'm going to move a bead for each that's going to represent each word. Okay, I'm going to say Tom ran home. So for each word, I'm going to say Tom ran home. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to cover up the rest of these because that's not part of the sentence, and that way they won't see them. Okay, guys, I have Tom ran home. Let's see how many words are in that sentence. 1, 2, 3. I have 3 words in the sentence, Tom ran home. Okay, let's slide them back. Okay, so then what you would do is you always want to follow the, I don't want to call it a protocol, but a method, I guess, that you want to model. So I did that one for you. You all watched me. Now let's do one together. So you all get your beads, and then we're going to do a sentence together. Okay, and we're going to say, I went to the store. What's our sentence going to be?
I went to the store.
Okay, so are we ready? 1, 2, 3. I went, you all say it with me as we say it together. I went to the store. Okay, I'm going to cover my rest of them up. Now, let's see how many words are in that sentence. Let's count them. Ready? How many beads? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when you do that, going back to what Stephanie was talking about earlier, as you're counting, make sure you're looking around and they are touching each one of those beads as they count them, that they're not just doing what Stephanie did earlier, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you count it. So how many words are in that sentence that we just said? 5. Good job. Okay, now I'm going to give you guys a sentence and you're going to do it yourself. Let's see. I have a pet named Roxy. So say the sentence back to me first so I know that you heard me correctly.
I have a pet Roxy.
I'm giving y'all long sentences. Obviously, you're not going to do that with your children, okay? You would start out with like 3, 4, 5 word sentences. Based on your kids, you're gonna adjust that. Okay, so now go ahead and do that and tell me how many words you come up with in that sentence. Okay, good job. Okay, so and we're gonna, I need to, see, I get hung up and we gotta move on because we got a lot to
The
show
big thing
you.
is also, if that student can tell you there's 5 words in that sentence, they can also break that apart when they're writing it and know how many, instead of squishing it all together, right? That ends up happening too. They squish all the little words together, and then you got one sentence that goes on and on. Well, actually, one word goes on and on and on forever. There's not any breaks.
And down the page this way because they won't go over there and start again.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's the concept of spoken word, and I'm gonna speed up. So when
Wiki
we-
sticks work for that. You can put a wiki stick at the end of the page. I don't know if you've ever tried wiki sticks, but you can stick them on there, and if they touch that wiki stick, they have to go back to the beginning.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Something
wiki sticks work
different.
for that. I did do something good in writing once every blue moon.
Anyway, so when you do something with your kids, you want to do the same model as I do it. You know, you're going to model it first, have them watch you. We do it, you do one together, and then you do it. I do it, we do it, you do it, and then they do it by themselves. Now that's the simple one, but you may have to do I do it, we, then you, and then back to what, So it depends on your kids. For today's purposes, since we're limited in time, we're not going to do that same process every time, but just know that when you're doing a concept or an activity, just follow that same protocol.
That's called explicit instruction. Did you say that already?
I did not say that.
That's called explicit instruction. Didi Hall was talking about that with Anita Archer. It's the I do, we do, you do, and many times it's a circular motion, because if you notice that a kid's making mistakes, we got to go back, right? We don't always have to go back to the I do, but we may have to go back to the we do, and during that we do, we need to be having conversations. So keeping that in mind too.
Yeah.
The student should be talking, if not more than you, at least as much as you are during that time.
So we did the words, and now the next one is phoneme blending. Phonemes are sounds, so it's the same concept that we did, except you're doing individual sounds instead of words. So instead of saying sentences, then you're going to say, okay, I'm going to give you the word cat. How many sounds do you hear in cat? And you don't want to say letters, you want them to hear the sounds. Okay, how many sounds? So, cat. So also when you give them a word, have them say the word back to you, and then they'll say it as they do it, and then have them say the word at the end. They just keep, that's just repetition, they get to hear it over and over. And then it's the same process. Okay, how many sounds do you have in cat? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's the same thing. So you can do sounds. The next one is syllable counting. So if you gave them the word, because sometimes you could do like doing this, banana, or clapping or tapping, and all of those are fine because it's motion. This is just an additional strategy that you can use. So this one is the same thing. You're going to move it for each syllable. So if I had helicopter, then I would say hel-i-cop-ter, and then cover it up, and then how many syllables? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's the same thing. And then the thing is the same with spelling. They can also use with spelling. And once you move up to doing the sounds, then if you want to spell cat, how many letters are in cat? C-A-T. So, and that's the ones for ELA. Any comments, questions, or good? Okay.
Okay, so if I'm using the B string, I'm gonna pick on people. Come here, Shelly. Whether you like it or not, you get picked on. She's my cousin. I can pick on her. Alright, so of course with this is counting, right? We can count and we don't have a problem with counting, but we don't want them to say a number until they have moved it all the way across. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, it has to sound. We have to make sure that it's touching there. It has to stop. I don't want them doing that, and then we're gonna ask again. I love this one. So how many do we have? And they'll say, you hope they'll say 4. And then sometimes they'll say 6, and you're really like, nope, gotta start over. And so we'll do it again, and we will pull them over. Again, we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and they have to stop there. The other thing is, that's that one-to-one correspondence we want them to have. It's the same thing as if I'm using counters, and I know we haven't got to that part yet, but if I'm using counters, they can't say it until it drops into the container. They have to hear it, right? So we're getting 2 of those. They're dropping it and they have to hear it. The other thing is one more or one less. Now, we talked about this has to be, we want them to know 5ness, right? We want them to know 10s too. I can count my 10s very quickly on here because I can go to the next one because of the color. That's the reason I like these. But I want them to know what 10 and one more is. So we know we got 10 here, right? So if I pull 2 over here, what do you see?
12.
How do you know that's 12?
Because there's 2 white.
There's 2 white. What do you know about the red? All the red.
There's 10 of them.
There's 10. So if I pull over this, what's there?
23.
How do you know?
There's 10 red, 10 white, and 3 red.
So I know I've got 2 10s and 3 1s, right? At this point. Having those conversations, the one more, the one less, we want to get into that to where they know that this is 10. If this is 10 and I take 1 away, what do I have?
9.
How do you know that?
Because you took 1 red away.
I took 1 red away from 10, right? And it's gone. And if I count these, there's 9. So having that and them to be able to see this very quickly. She is very fluent at 23 here, right? I want my kids to be very fluent at 23. I want them to know this is 2 10s and 3 1s and to be able to say that to me. So having that fluency that goes with this. Another thing is if you've got 2nd graders or beyond, a great game that you can play is War. I'm gonna make her do this so you don't have to. She don't like doing this game with me. So in War, she and I are gonna turn around, we're gonna be back to back. I'm gonna let you do the easier part. You can pull off as many as you want on this string and take them with you. And you have to hold them over your shoulder.
Do what?
Take as many as you want, whatever your number is, just take it. And then I get the rest of them. So the thing is, I have to look at mine. This is called War, right? And we're gonna be doing all kinds of math problems here. So I look at mine and I say, oh, here's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got 58. So you must have 42, am I correct?
Yep.
And see how easily she checked that? This is a subtraction problem within 100. We can do all kinds of these, the 2 of us just sitting at the table. And all of them are gonna start with 100, take away a number, right? So in my case, it's 100, take away 58. My answer is gonna be 42. Hers would be 100, take away 42 equals 58. See how easily that was done? We can play War. Now, get it? Your kids may not be ready for 100. So take off the number they don't need. That's the good thing about them just having a little knot in the end. And if I'm working within 10, I'm working within 20, I'm working within 40, maybe I'm only working within 50. I take off and they only have the ones they need. They can play War again. This is a quick, easy game for them to be able to do and do lots of problems without actually thinking they're doing problems. Thank you.
That is a good one, Fred, indeed.
Yes.
Our little kids love to do the count by 10s, to do their 100 necklace,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
and that would be excellent lesson.
So these, I use them for counting by 10s, counting by 5s, counting by 2s, anything that I would model, they were modeling. And so we make sure that each time theirs looked exactly like mine, and I would check quickly to see where they were at with them. Makes it a whole lot easier. Like I said, I use this, and I'll show you, because you're gonna probably, do you have 8th grade? Okay, anybody in here have 8th grade or high school? Nobody in here has high school? You have high school.
Okay.
So,
Let me say something on that note before you hold your thought, because one of the things that we come up with or that we encounter a lot is when we do this, it seems automatically for primary. So when you have, you know, it just seems primary, because typically when you're in the primary, you see a lot of these things on the shelves. By the time they get to sometimes even 4th and 5th grade on up, they're gone.
yeah, they're gone.
And so when we start talking about this, then it's like, oh, well, this is not for my kids. These are not for, you know, older kids and things like that. But that's really just it is a misconception, because when you had those older kids, if they don't understand, if they're not there, if they don't do this abstract, if they can't do that, this is what they need, regardless of how old it is. And this stuff, you know, like Stephanie was just showing with, you know, that's not necessarily babyfied, because this 100, there's no way the primary kids are ready for this. So this is perfect.
I used to work with high school kids and we had stuff like that.
Did you? Well,
Yeah.
good, yay.
Yeah, we had stuff like that.
Good. I am so glad to hear you
Yeah.
say that, because, you know, we see that a lot, and I'm like, oh my goodness, and you know, you see kids struggle, but they have to have this concrete before they can move to that, regardless. And one things that we have seen too in our teaching is like when they're in the regular classroom, they get frustrated and you see that anxiousness.
And they
you
send
know.
them back to the special ed classroom. How many times does this happen to you? You take them down there, you don't get back to your room until they're sending them back because they're frustrated already,
They don't know
right?
what to do.
Yeah, and
Because
then
they don't have
yeah,
the
and
things
then
they need.
so they don't have that out there. So then you take them to and when they get in the resource room, you can just see the relief coming over their face, because they know that it's got, you know, they have these things in there. So if we and it's not just for special ed kids. I mean, this is stuff for any kid that don't have it yet. And then I mean, so I just wanted to kind of, I guess I'm preaching to the choir a little bit, but I just wanted to mention that because our middle high school kids need this as much as our primary.
So I'm gonna say this much, I was lucky enough to work with a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teacher who was like, whatever you need, put it in here, cause I co-taught with him, right? All of my kids came in there at a certain time. They also, some of them got resource on top of that, but we would co-teach together. And what I would do is anything that I needed for my kids to have was available in their little cubbies over here, right? We had a little cubby shelf that had all kinds of manipulatives in. Kids knew they could go get them. What we noticed was happening after a while, because they would watch me do this with some of our regular ed kids were going over, and I want to say it that way, was going over and getting manipulatives too, because it was helping them. This is good for all kids. This isn't just good for our kids. It's really great for our kids, but it's good for all kids. Now, if I'm teaching, let's say I'm doing algebra, and it's x plus 4 is equal to 20. Here's 20, right? I'm pulling off the rest of them. I know it was plus 4, taking that away, right? Because that's part of that. This is what x is. Now we said it was x, but what if it was 2x? Only thing I have to do is divide this in half, right? So 2, 4, 6. I know this is a full 10. I pull over 6, 2, 4, 6. I divide this in half. My answer is 8. X is 8 because I divided the 2, so 2 x's, so 1 x is 8. I taught my kids to do this on here using nothing more than clips, the clothesline clips that you use. Because then they would pull it over, they would put their first clip, we would talk about it, what they would do, and they could do easily 2-step equations. So keep that in mind. These can be used for a lot of things. They're not just for elementary. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm done.
Okay, now we're going to move on to our Unifix cubes. And with these, I mean, you can see each bullet there is a different concept that you can use for our Unifix cubes.
You can choose whichever color.
Okay. Thank you. And a lot of things, you will see when we do this, some of the concepts are the same. Like you'll see syllable counting on this one is the same, and the phoneme blending. You will see that some of what you can do with this, you can also do with this, because the point is just the movement and the visual representation. And like everybody is different, so some kids may prefer to have this, other kids may be okay to use these. It's whatever works for them. Okay, so the first one is syllable blending and segmentation. So like we had talked about, this one is identifying how many syllables you have. Then we're going to learn how to blend them together and also separate them. So let's just do, we'll start with 4. So when you're wanting to do this with a kid and you want to start out with exactly how many syllables they have at the beginning. So we'll start with 2, and I'm going to say the word zebra. Okay, now if I want them to blend it, then I'm going to present it to them separate. Okay, so I'm saying, okay, I'm going to give you these cubes and I'm going to give you the word zebra. I want you to blend those syllables together for me. And then they're going to say, okay, zebra, zebra. Okay, so they blended it. They physically pushed those sounds together, those syllables together. This is Z and this is bra. You push them together, blend them, and it makes zebra. Okay, and then if you want them to, break them apart or segment them, then you're going to present it to them together. So if I had banana, and banana is going to be 3 syllables, then I'm going to hand it to them and I'm going to say, okay, use these blocks and show me the syllables in banana. Okay, banana, banana. All right, so then I'm going to segment them or separate them, banana, so they can see that it's physically separated into those syllables. Okay, so let's try a couple, because you guys haven't really participated a little bit. So if I gave you, the word panda, so let's blend panda with your syllables. So the first thing that you're going to do is panda is going to be 2 syllables. So go ahead and get 2 blocks. And then you're going to separate those. So I'm going to you're going to start with them, start with them separate. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Start with them separate and you're going to blend panda. So as you say it, you're going to put the first syllable and then push them together as you say the second one. So go ahead and practice that one with panda. Okay, now that you have them together, now go ahead and separate panda. Let's separate panda into 2 syllables. Okay, now we have even numbers, so I'm going to give you guys a word, and you guys are going to take turns.
Quiet.
And then so when we'll do one blending, one segmenting, and then we'll. So we'll just do you two, and you two just pair up, and then one of you be the teacher first to segment, and then you'll flip, and the other one will be the student. Flip the roles of the student. So let's do a 3-syllable word, and let's do. I'm stuck on banana. 3-syllable word.
Me too, I said candy cane.
Hey, you know what? You come up with your own 3-syllable word, and then you and present it. So just practice that model. If you can't think of one,
We're gonna have to make it
Summertime.
3 syllable words.
yeah, summertime.
I heard that and that's cool. Okay,
Well, look here,
I want you to separate them.
in my lanyard. I mean,
This would be
What are you doing to yourself today?
that.
Okay.
Now, I need you to blend the word
8 and 10,
banana.
12. That's all I'm saying.
Good job.
Okay, so you guys got the hang of it on the syllable blending, and okay. The next one is syllable counting. So the difference is now is you're not going to tell them that you have. You're not going to give them a 2-syllable word. Then you're going to give them a word, and at the beginning you are going to give them just enough blocks because. So for example, if you had the word pocket. How many syllables is that? 1, 2, 2. So you're just getting them in the habit of actually touching and counting each one. Now, as they progress in that skill and get better, you may want to hand them 5 cubes and then give them a word that has 2 or 3 syllables and have them pick off of it. You know, and that way you really know that they know how many syllables. Because they'll catch on pretty quick. If you're going to give them 3 and give them a 3-syllable word, they're going to catch on. So then you make it a little bit harder for them. So as you go through that same process we went through, then you just have them count and then they tell you how many syllables it is. Same with the syllable deletion, and I'm going to, I should have done the phonemes first, but the syllable deletion, so for example, okay, this one's fun. Okay, I'm gonna give, if I had the word remember, okay, remember, I have 3 syllables. If I take away mem, what do I have left? Now I started with the hardest one because at the beginning, you know, you would take, so then you're gonna have re and burr. Now, like I said, that is the hardest one. So at the beginning, so that's being able, you're deleting, you're taking away that syllable, and if they can distinguish what syllables are left, especially after when you take one away, what's left, then they do have that concept of understanding syllables and being able to separate them. Okay, so like if I gave you basket, and I'm taking away ket, what do I have left? Bass. So that is syllable deletion. So, and have them do that. The phoneme blending and segmentation. So what we just went through with the syllable is the same exact process, except it's with phonemes, which is individual sounds. So I'm not going to take the time to go through all of that, but like for example, just really quick, like for if you had, instead of doing this, like I said, the syllables of like banana, then you're going to do cat. And I know I've said cat 15 times, but it's working right now. We'll just so you just take, you know, at, and it's just the individual sounds. It's the same process. Like I don't want to keep going through that for time's sake.
So if you took the T off, it would be
Yeah, and then so that's the blending and blending. You're going to push them together as you're doing that, and to form the word, and then to separate them. And then for the deletion of the initial and final sounds, like she's talking about. So if you had, oh, and this is a good example too. So like I said, we're not talking about letters right now. We're talking about sounds. So if I did bake, bake, I mean, we know that's 4 letters, but we're not. It don't matter. So okay, we do bake. I'm taking away k. What do I have left? Bay. And then if I do, so, and then that's if they can, especially if they can, when they can do that and be able to, if they're able to tell you what's left when you take away a sound, then you know that they are hearing those sounds individually, and they are able to break them apart, and then they have that concept that they're blending sounds to form words when they're able to do that. And then this other one, the substitution of an initial sound. Now there's a couple different ways you can do this. If you have, and it depends on the kid. So if we had the word can, and I'm taking away and I'm adding what's my new word? And. Now, I changed a different color. That's just representing that I changed the sound of it. I think that's helpful because they know that, you know, we switched them out. So that's what the substitution of initial sound, that's what that one is. And then okay, I have and I'm taking away what do I have left? And. Okay, and then of course adding phonemes. That's the same thing as like if I started with at. I have at, I'm going to add a, what do I have? Pat. Okay.
Would it be, I have a question, would it be helpful to have the words there that you work with that day, or is that just
if they're
in
ready,
your head in general
well,
to do.
that yes, it absolutely, because if they're ready for the words, yes, because it increases that vocabulary. So you're really doing a double, doing double.
Visual, right.
Because it's the words they need to know anyway, and then that's how you're doing it. So yes, absolutely.
Like the
So,
spelling words.
and I'm glad you asked that, because I do forget to mention that sometimes when you use these strategies with the words and the vocabulary that you guys are working on that day.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go back real quick to one thing. I did not explain multiplication and division with the bead string. So one of the things I wanted to show you was, this is 3 groups of 4. So if we got 3 times 4, we want 3 groups of 4. So we're gonna count 4, put a clothespin. Count 4, put a clothespin, count 4, put a clothespin. What we know is the solid white is 10, right? We already have that in our head. So we know that 3 times 4 is 12 because I can see it easily to look at. Now if I'm doing division, and let's say that it's 27. Okay? We have 27 here. And I'm dividing it by 9. At that point, I'm counting over 9. I'm counting over 9. And I'm making sure my last group is 9. And it is, right? Now I have how many groups? So 27 divided by 9 is 3. So they can do division on this. This is one of my students, his little aha moment came from doing this multiple times, and he got his 9s very quickly. I had showed him different tricks, but he still wasn't getting it with the different tricks that we have, right? Because we tend to do that with 9s. But he actually saw what was happening with 9s, that it was 10 times the number, subtract the 3, and I was getting my answer. And so that was a big thing for him to be able to see and be able to explain it too. So that helps. So that's with this. Now let's talk about with the cubes.
And we got 5 minutes.
Oh, Lord, we're not gonna do this. I'm sorry. Guys, we have got, this is literally a 3-hour training we can do. Or truthfully, we're obviously 6.
And there's, yeah.
So again, with counting, I'm gonna show you some things that we can do with the Unifix cubes. I wanna make sure I've got all the same color because I want to. If I was doing 5 and I was wanting them to see one more, I do the one more in a different color, right? I wanna be able to see that. I try to keep 10s and 5s together as one color and then go on with another color. So if I'm doing addition and it's 5 plus 2, it would be 5 plus 2, and they would see it like this. Okay? That gives them the understanding this is 5, now I can count on, right? We want them to get to that point that they can count on. When they have to go back here, they're still behind in their skill, right? They need to be able to subitize and understand this is 5, 6, 7 very quickly. This is a problem that we have with a lot of kids because they can't subitize the number 5, they can't subitize the number 10, and be able to see it very quickly. Also, what I do with my students who are having trouble with that one-to-one correspondence, they get a solo cup. I don't have a solo cup with me. I actually have one over there, and I forgot to bring it. They have to hear it, just like I said a while ago. They can't count it until they hear it. So that was 1, 2, 3. They have to hear it to count it. That's another one of the things that we do. Another thing is, if this is 10, and I want my kids to be able to understand what 9 is, and we're going to put them together real quick, because we're running out of time here. I want them to be able to put these together and understand that it's 1 less, 1 more, whatever it may be, and be able to see it. I can see that 9 is 1 less, right? Very easily here. I can see that 8 is 2 less than 10. And we can talk about the difference. We can also talk about measurement in this. So there's that. In your bag is a K-Vec. Put this in here for a reason. This is your very own number line, guys. It's the best number line you'll ever have because on one side it's in inches, right? And the other side it's in centimeters. And if you notice the centimeter side, it goes 10, then 1 more. 10, 2 more. 10, 3 more. The kids, this is a great way to do addition in your 10s. Also, with this side, it's your number line all day long. You can pull it out, it slides back up, it's real easy. My kids can see 10 on here and then add more They can see 5 on here, add more, whatever number they may need, and be able to count up from. Again, clothespins are cheap. I love the dollar store. I don't know about you guys, but I love the dollar store. And clothespins are cheap. So if it's 13 plus the number, they put 13 on there, and then they count up, right? In this case, they're counting 5 and they can see the number. And so we will want them to do that. Sometimes I will have them to do this, because if they're not ready to count on, I'll say 13 and I'll say, now count 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'll come to 18, and then I'll say, no, let's count up 13, 14, 15, 16, because I'm getting that in their head, right? They're counting up at that point. We counted on, and now we're going to count up. All right. The other games that you can play, you're going to stop right there because I'm going to take over.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were
Other
done.
games that you can play with this is if you've got a solo cup. She's not getting this last 2 minutes. All right. Let's say that we're working with 5. We put it in the solo cup, right? There's a game called grab. We put it in the solo cup. They can't see through the solo cup. That's a good thing about solo cup. We say grab. They grab some. We know the number that was in there, 5. And I say, I grabbed 3. How many's in here? And they have to be able to do 2. This is really hard. The other game that they can play, and I love this one, is however many that you need that they're ready to go to, is we're going to play wall. And wall is just, they line it up away from them, and they're going to be sitting down, so that's the good part about this. They're going to wall off a number. Now, what if I've got a kid and we're working within 5, and I say wall off 4, and they go right there, and they automatically know there's 1 on the end, we're ready to move on to another number. We're ready to move on to more numbers, right? But if they can't, and they have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then wall off, then I know I need to stay within this number. Because sometimes when we jump too quickly on to other numbers for our kids, and that they don't understand the magnitude of the numbers that we're working with. So I typically say if we're working with kindergarten, and we're working within 5, right? That's our fluency standard that we really want. In first grade, it's within 10, and within second grade, it's within 20. That's what we want for our kids, is to be able to get that magnitude of that number so they can move on. All right, there's my spiel.
Well, what we'll do the last little bit is, just because you have materials for this, so we want you to know
Yes.
how to use them. But I promise you, it will be really quick. In your bag, you have a folder, and you have, we call it a parking lot, and you also have a Hot Wheel of some sort in your bag. So what this is, if you will have one that's got free. 4 spots, or 3 spots. So it depends on how many sounds or letters, or what you're working with on your word. It doesn't matter. So let's just do the third one. So with this one, what you're going to do, and what this does is it helps determine if a kid can identify what sound they hear at the beginning, middle, or end. So if you said the word hat, that's creative, isn't it? If you said the word hat, tell me, where do you hear the sound in hat? And so, and then again, like Stephanie said, let them play with it, blah, 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 ramp it up, whatever. And then they're going to drive to the spot. This is the first, middle, and the end. So they're going to drive and park their car in the first spot, because is in the beginning. Okay, and then you can look around and see really quickly. And then if you wanted to say, okay, in the word hat, where do you hear the t sound? And then they drive it through and park it at the end. So that's what that is. Okay.
You can also use that on your wonderful number line that you have here, and have a student get to a number and then drive it through the next 3 numbers, right? It's an easy way. Those little boys love to be able to do this. They have time to drive it over, and then they have to write their numbers. So that's that one.
The last thing is this screen. I know, we're keeping them over. We're trying to hurry.
Give us a minute.
I think this is the last thing. Yeah. Okay. The last thing, what this does is, again, it does that. We want them to be able to feel it. So when they're ready to make letters, so if they're writing a C, you're going to take your paper, put it over top of this screen, and your crayon, and you want them to bear down kind of hard And if they have, to help with motor skills, you can give them a short crayon, by the way. It will force them to hold the pencil correctly. But you press down and make the C. And then you take your finger and rub, and you take this away, and then they can trace it and they feel it. So I want you guys to, and then as they trace it, then you say, C says K. And then they practice with that motion. And it's really cool what this does, and you can write the numbers with it. Like, it helps to form letters and be able to write those letters correctly. And I will, like I said, I will stop right there. Stephanie may have something to
The
add.
only thing I need to add to that one is the fact that for this, if you're doing it with numbers, there are little sayings like around the track and come straight back, choo choo, that's the way we make a 2. You've heard these, I know. Cross the sky and down from heaven, that's the way we make a 7. All of those are great, but making sure they know the spot they need to start in. I love it when I get a child and they make the 8 correctly and they don't make 2 big zeros. That's all I'm gonna say. Or they make a 1 and they start from the bottom and try to slide up.
Here's our contact information. If you guys have any questions or comments, here's this. Feel free to email us anytime. We'd love to come out and see you all. And like I said, when you all get in the classroom and have questions, because you will, because we absolutely crammed this information down your throats.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
once if you have any questions, like, now what did she say? Please reach out to us. We love coming out and visiting and just talking to you guys. Okay, thank you all.